I get confused by all the claims made in commercials.
Okay, here we go, folks. Start the wind. And the smoke. And
100% illegal project.
Something you could listen to 20 times and hear something different each time.
1, 2, urinate.
There wasn't as much of a distance between musique concrète and pop music.
Miniatures.
Now, back to modern times.
Your attention, please. At the recommendation of the International Time Bureau, commencing at 23 hours, 59 minutes, 60 seconds UTC,
I wanted to make animated monster movies, and at age 11 or 12, I got a little used regular 8 movie camera from some store in the shopping mall out in the suburbs, and I started shooting, these animated monster movies. And then I started getting more into the idea of, filmmaking and cinema, and by the time I was 13, I was writing screenplays adapted from novels. And I was trying to find, I don't know, what was that book, Lenny Lipton, Super 8 filmmaker guy, anything you could find, which was so hard pre-internet to find things that gave you information. It was all like top secret stuff in the world of media and how do you actually make this stuff? I was badly bullied in high school and in junior high, and so I think that also pushed me really into creating a little secret world for myself where I had some kind of control over it, So I really just stayed in my bedroom a lot, working on projects. My parents never had to worry about that I was going to be out doing drugs or getting drunk or coming, where's Mark at 4 a.m. They were always worried about, why does he never come out of his room? What is he doing in there? And then this record store opens up in Berkeley, Rather Rip Records, and they're selling imported music, which at the time was very unusual. There was only 2 stores in the whole Bay Area that sold music that was imported. So you'd find records from, Japan, from England, from Germany. And just again, my world just opened up even more, where I discovered, Neu and Kraftwerk and Cluster and Klaus Schulze and all this German stuff, and Philip Glass and Steve Reich and Per Ubu and The Residents and Kraftwerk. I was into everything. I never understood why people would be, I could enjoy Black Flag and I could enjoy, Pink Floyd and I could enjoy Gentle Giant and I could enjoy Neu. I mean, there was all these things that I was just into anything unusual and different in music.
Bad that scratch was there. I was working with an antenna. I was actually setting up a little, very poor quality, but a pirate radio station. And I kept going on the roof to adjust it, and then I would maybe get outside and walk with my transistor radio. I got it to go about a mile, but it seems like during this one afternoon when I was climbing up on the roof, adjusting and fiddling with things, every time I'd get up there, Richard would call on the phone. My mother would say, Richard's on the phone again, you want to talk? So that impressed me. I figured this guy wants to know me. I don't know why. I got to know Richard a little better. We visited a few times over at his parents' house, and I actually took the pirate radio transmitter. It looked about like the box of the Booper, except it was a transmitter, and he ran it for a while. He actually acquired an old Magnavox vacuum tube console from the early 60s, one of those big long things in the big fancy cabinet, and I helped him modify the turntable. We took out the ceramic cartridge and installed a Shure magnetic cartridge to make it sound better. We generally got interested in recording. He liked more of the commercial radio stuff. I'd have him over and we'd do like a radio show with playing records.
Did you ever think you would get in a band?
No, I didn't think I still don't think I'm worthy of a band. I have no business being in a band. I'm not a musician. I'm this thing. What I do here with this weird stuff.
I wanted to hear this noisy, found, cut up, avant-garde, experimental, but I wanted it to be with a beat or with something that you could dig into that was that had a popular culture, you know, kind of aspect to it. And even the fact that we called it a name. When we were making our first record, we'd never played live. It was a bedroom thing. And I remember when we were discussing this, we said, well, what do we call it? What are we? I don't think we're a band. I mean, but then I remember saying, I think we should call it a band, say we're a band. Let's just pretend we're a band. Because I think it'd be more interesting if our records show up in the popular music section and not get relegated to being in the contemporary, you know, 20th century experimental music section.
Who came up with the name?
I did.
You did. Okay.
But I was always embarrassed about, I never wanted to tell people where the name came from for years. It was so embarrassing. Oh my God. And I remember I thought the name was so dumb to say it out loud that when I suggested the name to the rest of the guys, I handed it to them written down on a little piece of paper. But the name is the name of a track from a Noi album. The first Noi album has a track called Negativland. So it's completely lame. It's like, yeah, we stole it. The name, of course, is stolen. So that sort of fits.
Then I guess you meet Mark, right?
At this Audience Studies Incorporated place, and they still exist too.
Audience, oh, that's what it's called.
ASI.
Okay.
What we do, we would call people on the phone and recruit them to watch television shows on the cable access channel in Walnut Creek.
Richard, it turned out, lived near me. So one of the days when I was working at this, you know, it was called Audience Studies Institute, asking people these questions about what were their favorite TV shows. Richard says, oh, well, I could drive you home. We're in the car driving home, and he puts on this little cassette, and it's got this orchestra playing, and someone singing on top, singing these ridiculously strange lyrics. And I said, what is that? Who's that singing? And he says, that's me. And I said, how did you do that? And he had taken a record and he'd mixed his voice in singing on top of it. It was an instrumental track from, I think, maybe the movie Born Free. And he'd made this thing by, you know, stealing something, you know, reusing something. And I just couldn't believe it. You know, I was like, oh my God, what? You do that? Because I've been starting to experiment with sounds too. You know, and then it turned out, as I said, David had made the booper, David knew how to make tape loops, and this was this miracle that you could take sound and connect one end of the sound to itself and make it repeat over and over. And all this is nothing now if you're playing with a laptop.
So that's live. It's live. It's clamped. It's not alive, Drew.
78 is when Mark, Richard, and I started doing things. Doing little recording projects. We got a consumer tape recorder, and it was actually a pretty good one for the time. It was a Sony Model 355. The reason we got that particular model, it had separate record and playback heads, so you could monitor the tape and or make echo if you want. And those Sonys, you could record the left side, rewind it back, and then record the right side separately. You didn't have to do them both at once. So we did a lot of the stuff for the first album, the Untitled album.
Everything's going fine, no trouble. Just get set and get going. Amen. Recording, everything's going fine, no trouble. Just get set and get going. Amen. Recording, everything's going fine, no trouble. Just get set and get going. Amen.
Took it upon myself as a personal goal to finish making a record before I got out of high school. And the other guys in Negativland are a little older than me. We found someone who knew how to make records. You know, how do you turn sound into a piece of plastic, you know, vinyl? I don't know. There was no way to find this out. There was a guy who ran a record store in the suburbs who knew how to get a record mastered, where you send it to be pressed. And we discovered that you could get blank white record jackets. We didn't know anything about printing. How do you print up a record jacket? And it's 1979. How do you find this out? I don't have any idea. But I had an art class, and I just thought, well, we could get these blank white sleeves, and we can, if we don't know how to print them, we'll just make the covers, and it'll be cheaper. So for my entire semester in my senior year, I would cut out pieces of black butcher paper, glue them on the front. I think I used the airbrush and would spray paint the front first with the name Negativland with a little stencil. Then I glued a flap on the front that had the butcher paper. We made 500 of them, and we thought, well, maybe this will sell in the next 5 years. Maybe a few hundred, I don't know. We didn't know. We thought we consigned them to a couple record stores in the Bay Area. But in the wake of punk rock, there was these independent record distributors that we didn't even know existed. And so our record had been in this one store in Berkeley for a week or two, and we got a phone call from a distributor called Systematic. And they said, well, we want your record. We want 100 copies. And we were just blown away. You know, couldn't believe it. 2 weeks later, they called back and they said, well, they're gone. We want another 200 more. And I said, well, where are they? Where did they go? And he said, oh, we shipped them to other record stores. And this was like telling me that we've just sold 10 million records. I mean, my head was exploding with excitement. And talk about encouragement, you know, to keep going. You're like, oh my God, people are interested in what we're doing? And it turned out that the handmade covers ended up being this kind of great form of advertising unintentionally, because people would look at a few of them in a row and they would be curious, like, what the hell is this? And again, this is 1980. This was pretty strange that there were these one-of-a-kind handmade covers. And over the next 15 or 20 years, we made 15,000 handmade one-of-a-kind record covers and CD covers. 15,000.
Well, good hello. I'm here to show you a thing or three about making album covers. Now, this is not a video for public consumption. This is just for the group, for those of you who may at this point doubt my speed, accuracy, and agility given my old age, and since some of you have never even seen me make an album cover before. So, let's take a closer look, shall we?
Be sate. Play Black Sabbath at 78. A slippy, a sparky, puffin' right along. A munal condoption. A munal condoption.
Another shot of the gun. There you have it.
This is Negativland, reminding you to get ready for the Love Canal at Love Course 49. I want it so bad.
Attention, please. At the recommendation of the International Time Bureau, commencing at 23 hours, 59 minutes, 60 seconds UTC.
It actually gets, I like to say it gets sassy. Kind of like an angry bird or something.
Basically, it's just an AM radio, a transistor radio, where I've taken the output of the sound and put it back into the input again with a bunch of knobs in between to change how it sounds.
If you hold a microphone up to an amplified speaker close enough, it'll start feeding back, and that's oscillation. And in a sense, that's all a booper is taking the output of an amplifier, either from a transistor radio or a tape player, or even building one just from transistors, feeding it back to the input through components like capacitors and potentiometers, resistors, and that'll change the way the sound is. So you just expand on that. That's what it is, and I didn't come up with it. David Wills, I think, came up with that in the mid-70s, sort of by accident or something.
1, 2, 3, 4. Those 4 little black things, those are the 4 inline transistor amplifiers. And then this is a separate amplifier, the main output amplifier that was pre-made. I got it online. And that main feedback comes off of that first amplifier and goes to different stages of the others through these knobs and switches.
The way I make these is I try and get it to do patterns, because I like wanting to use one as a rhythm machine, and then I thought, well, I want to use a bunch of them together.
Are you going? It's oh boy. Huh? Are you going? David, answer me. Yeah. I'd like to know if he started the thing yet. Yeah. I didn't start it. Is it ready?
I had a radio show, and I would take calls from strangers in the middle of the night, and there was a guy who was a security guard in a medical facility, and he would call up and request bands all the time. And one night he said, "Can you play some Negativland?" And I thought, well, that sounds like, you know, every punk band I've ever heard of. Sure, I'll play Negativland. That's a name that, you know what I mean? It sounds like every punk band named Negativland. All right, I'll play it. And it was Points, so second album that he directed me to, and I just needle dropped, you know, wherever it happened, whatever track we happened to play. I can't even remember what the track we played was. It was just so darn unpretentious. And at that point, you got to remember, 86, 87, you know, all the punk rock stuff that I've been listening to, a lot of it had been turning really pretentious. It was getting really kind of politically strident. American hardcore had kind of taken its hold on things. And here was this goofy, dumb, suburban record that was kind of appealing to nerds and dorks, you know. It was about vacuum cleaners and parakeet cages and household noises. So there's something really refreshing about that.
One day I was listening to Calix, the radio station in Berkeley, UC Berkeley station, and they put an announcement on the air that they would like to have DJs come up and try out, and you didn't have to be a student, anyone can try it, and they were looking for DJs. They were shorthanded at the station. So I did it. They talked to me for about 5 minutes, put me on the air. I had never been on the radio before. I knew nothing about it, but I went on the air and started doing a show on Calix, and in that way got more and more deeply involved in music and what you could do for a show and how you could mix things in a show and how you could combine things in a show and so forth, beyond just playing the hits of the day or whatever. And did that for several years, and then moved from Calix to KPFA, where I started Over the Edge. Ian was a friend of mine at that time, and it occurred to him that he'd like to bring Negativland up to my radio show, which he did. So they came in. I didn't quite know what to expect. I had never heard of them before, and they brought records, LPs, all kinds of stuff, tapes, and they started sort of mixing stuff on the air spontaneously themselves, and I was just sort of aghast at this breach of radio etiquette or whatever. It seemed like really wild and crazy, but fascinated and enjoyed it quite a bit.
Now, Watto, you will say your prayers and Mama will tuck you in bed. You will go to sleep. Mama, can God hear me when I pray tonight? Oh, of course God can hear you. Such a question.
And then they came up several times. They kept coming up month after month. And eventually, I joined the band.
The Universal Media Network with today's Arts Review.
Good hello. When you compute the days and nights, count up all the days of life, add to that the starry nights, the sum is not a number.
Gotten into editing quite a bit, and editing tape and preparing little edits, funny little things and quirky little things out of stuff I was capturing off of mass media at home. And so in joining Negativland, it sort of fit right in this whole editing business and creating collages out of found sound. This is ancient radio technology that's now virtually extinct. Reel a tape, you put it in the machine, has heads, it's a tape player, and you play them, and you can start them and stop them and pause them and fast forward them and so forth. We have an 8-track reel-to-reel and a half-track reel-to-reel too. Plus can go online in here, and it works pretty well. Homemade studio.
Yeah, a lot of cards.
Yeah, a lot of cards. My interest in painting weren't in collage and visual work. I was, the abstract expressionist Jackson Pollock is a master to me, and so chaos is good. What's good always, but I wasn't into collage that much in a visual sense until I got into sound, and after I got into sound and approached that as collage, then I sort of became more interested in visual collage too at the same time. But I don't know why, just naturally, and I guess it came mostly from the radio show where you can just turn things on and off and intermix and interplay them, overlap them, whatever, because you have a whole lot of playback systems available simultaneously. We do take calls on the show, unscreened. It's just whenever the light lights up on the phone, I punch it in and they're on the air. They can do or say whatever they want. And I don't talk to them. We don't converse. It's not a talk show. The whole idea is that it's art and you're contributing to it on mass media with your telephone, via your telephone.
While I was waiting in the lobby, my mom came back and said she'd just seen Mike Stoddard. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said that the people from Ignacio are leaving to go to Hawaii. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And then I remembered, hey, Sue's going to Hawaii, right?
This is KPFA in Berkeley, KPFB in Berkeley, and KFCF in Fresno. I'm Don Joyce, and this is Over the Edge, an unscheduled edition. Ian Allen is here, Richard Lyons, and Mark Hosler. We're going to mix for you all night long.
You're in Concord.
Everybody welcome.
1, 2, stupid. 3, 4, dumb. 5, 6, idiotic. 7, 8, seat me safe. Very stupid. Very stupid. Very stupid. Very stupid. I like Concord. And 180G. I like Pleasant Hill. No other possibility.
You wouldn't usually find records that had both the total freeform collage and then one or two pop songs like sort of nestled in there. And when you actually get used to listening to them, the distance between what we're used to as pop music and what we're used to as musique concrète or the serious chin-strokey fragmented structures, like why they are the same. They are the same. One leads straight into the other. On the Negativland records, they were more of a continuum. So yes, I definitely responded to that. Like the idea that there wasn't as much of a distance between musique concrète and pop music as most other records would have you think.
All right, people. This is it. It's just about time for us to be 10-8. It's just about time for us now to be 10-8. And I'm going to tell you the story of 180 and the letter G.
It was just kind of an amalgamation, almost a distillation of everything that was just kind of interesting and cool going on in experimental music and what I was interested in at the time. It had humor, you know, it just starts, and it had noise. It had noise. It would just started off with this burst of noise. The next thing you know, they were playing a funny song. I mean, a subversive funny song. Everything is stupid. 1, 2, 3, 4, stupid. And you know, you couldn't help but identify with that because the whole world just seemed stupid. You know, back then it was much more fun to be subversive, I think. Now everything seems more serious, you know. Global warming's becoming real. Everyone else is worried about economic development. It's just all these things you have to think about and consider because it's all fucking real. But back then, you know, it was just nice to just laugh at everything. Laugh at the sex chemicals and the green slime. And they would sing about these things and tell stories about these things, and you could really relate to it. And yet, all this sound collage at the same time, these innocent little girls singing and playing a piano.
Clowns and ballerinas here and there. Clowns and ballerinas everywhere.
If you compare pre that record and post that record, it's very clear that Ian's tape cutting skills and his juxtaposition skills were like hugely important.
He was partly responsible, if not more than half, of the 10-8 Place album, which I consider our best work. And how dare I say work? That sounds too scholarly. But I'm going to say it anyway, as I don't know what else to call it.
Ian was gifted with an incredibly brilliant and quick mind that could sputter out ideas at like lightning speed. He had an insatiable sense of curiosity, which made it extremely difficult to walk a straight line down the street, because he would always be interested in stopping to look at something, which, like when we were in a hurry, it seemed like it was always everything, you know. So it could be a flyer on a telephone pole, or a window display, or a concrete stamp in the sidewalk, or a funny shape of a cloud. He just really had this like uncanny ability to show you beauty in the most mundane things.
All good music is like a living thing. That's why a really good band can like go around and play the same piece of music for years and years. And if it's really alive to them, then they never get, you know, it's not like it doesn't get stale. And Negativland music, to me, is like at the level of aliveness. There's so much in it, and so many ideas all working off each other. It's not this real linear thing.
Yes?
You can assure your family's secure comfort. But hurry, but hurry, but hurry, but hurry.
After the first Negativland album came out, Ian just contacted Mark and said, I want to meet you and the rest of the band. And so he went out to like Concord with his little Ewer tape recorder, and he like taped the whole 8-hour encounter. he had a very distinctive way of dancing where like every part of his very, very thin body, like the guy was like teeny, you know, probably like a foot taller than me, but probably weighed exactly the same weight as me. So he would dance where like, especially like when he's heard something that he really, really liked, he would like, every part of his body would sort of like bounce very like lightly in the air. And then above it all would be this like huge toothy grin. I was pretty, you know, I was already like taken by him. So then I was just like, it really, like he really made an impression again. Oh, I don't like what I said there.
Go to sleep, Tommy. Go to sleep, Tommy.
When I saw that I could get the audience to laugh, even if they were laughing at me, it didn't matter. It made me feel good that people were being happy because of something I was doing on a stage. Seat Be Sayed is a thing I made up probably when I was maybe as young as 7 years old. It was when I was first discovering that the guy has sexual feelings and there's stimulation, but I decided to really do it up special. I'd like find a big cardboard box, big enough so that I could climb in it, and I'd stuff the box with blankets or sheets and then climb in, and then not necessarily a sex thing, but I would just try to slide myself across a polished hardwood floor that we had in the house in Berkeley. And I just said, oh, that's a Seat Be Sayed, what I'm doing. I just made the word up on the fly. But I don't know if I did it that smoothly like I'm saying now. I may have said seat B and then seat, and then I just made, it just rolls off the tongue. Seat Be Sayed.
What did your dad think of that?
I don't think they thought much of anything. It was just their child playing around in a box.
David is like he's a true mad scientist genius because he's so good at the finished product. He's so good at, like, when he comes up with something, even if it's as simple as a post on his dumb page, it's like a finished product as soon as it comes out of him. Everything he does is a piece. Every paragraph that he speaks is like a performance. But it's not like he's performing. It's like he's just giving you a finished work. Like everything that comes out of him is like a finished work. And he's like the gift that keeps on giving.
This is the Weatherman on the Calrad Model 500C dual crystal broadcast type microphone. This is the Weatherman on the Panasonic dynamic microphone. I actually started in junior high. They would ask me, what's the weather report today? But then later on they'd get a little more gross. They'd ask me, while they were kind of laughing at the same time, they'd ask, what's the function of the vagina? And then they go off laughing. So interspersed was asking me sex questions. They'd ask me what the weather report is. And this started in junior high and it went right on through my senior year in high school.
You were bullied.
Yeah, but I didn't mind. I thought it was funny.
Something you could listen to 20 times and hear something different each time.
You've got a good beginning. Hit and miss and trial and error. It just depends again on breaking the records over radio.
Rock music blares People yell! Children scream! Sirens whine! Trucks rumble and roar! And rock music blares! Blares, blares, blares! Is there any escape from noise?
Escape from Noise sounded so different than anything else I was listening to. It had like kind of like this political message to it as well, but wasn't over your head. It was kind of a satire. It was fun, it was funny, it was upbeat. That was the album that had the car bomb bumper sticker in it. I mean, that was just amazing. I mean, I was like a teenager and I had like a sticker that said car bomb, and I didn't have a car. But I remember putting that on my mom's car and her flipping out. And I totally didn't understand why she'd flip out about having a car bomb sticker. At that time, I was listening to mostly American hardcore. I was listening to bands like Minor Threat and Bad Brains, Dead Kennedys, the whole Surfers, things like that. And here's this band that was really revolutionary, but also really nerdy, and that's something I could relate to pretty well because they had like kind of this AV tech nerdiness to them that was very approachable, and they didn't feel like a band so much as some kind of organization.
I credit, I think, mostly Mark's influence in that respect of just this sort of fuck you quality that he has, that Escape from Noise, their first big SST record could penetrate to like the punk rock mind and the college radio mind, in part because it had that attitude. Don wouldn't have, if Don had on his own been making that work, it probably wouldn't have had that same appeal. It would have been a little denser, a little more academic, little, wouldn't have crossed over in the same way. But by having these people that were sort of pushing the punk rock envelope in their own weird way, there's nothing more punk rock than the Weatherman.
Gimme, gimme, gimme. I need some more. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Don't ask what for. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I need some more. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Don't ask what for. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I need some more. Gimme, gimme, gimme.
Doing video work for Negativland is at some point challenging because if you hear a track enough, you've got some story to it yourself. If you listen to a big 10/8 place, it's a story. And you get it even the first time you listen to it. You might not get the whole thread all the way through necessarily, but you get the bits and pieces. You know that what they're doing is kind of constructing something. You know that part of the fun of putting these two tapes together and having them talk to each other is because there's an implied story that's going along.
What's her name?
This cat's name is Zero. And that's because when I was 5 years old, I thought there should be a cat named Zero. I never forgot. So when we found her starving and dying in our driveway, I own cats, so they become a source of fun. But they are kind of fun, though, aren't they? Funny cats? Aren't they kind of interesting?
Yeah, they are.
It's because they're so very serious about everything. They're like kind of dedicated to whatever it is they're doing. They don't have a sense of humor. Cats don't. They're very committed to the things they do, and they're not very. I think that their lack of sociability is also kind of a source of fascination for me too.
Well, she's very good in all your movies.
Isn't she? She's a fantastic actor, I think. She plays Hamlet. What else does she do? She mostly plays Hamlet.
My honored lord.
My most dear lord.
My excellent good friends, how dost thou, Guildenstern? Rosencrantz. Good lads, how do ye both?
As the indifferent children of the earth.
Happy in that we are not over happy.
Look, here's a Don card machine. That's one of his best card machines. Look at that. No stops, it says. And apparently, you know, he'd keep them like this so you could get into them. That's just a piece of cardboard, I guess. The good thing about this work is that you are interested in it, you listen to it, you like it, but how much of it actually seeps into your own practice and how much of it actually seeps into what you do. I realized, you know, sadly, though he wouldn't have cared to hear about it anyway, that Don was probably the greatest influence on my aesthetic out of anyone I've ever known. And this all happened before I knew him, before I actually met him. You know, after Escape from Noise came out, and then particularly Helter Stupid. I was in film school at that point, came out to do grad school at USC, so I came out to LA for that. And just about everything I was doing in terms of like editing and putting pieces of things together and thinking about, you know, the world around me and contextualizing it and the way that you can take mass media sources and put them together. This is all influenced by Don and his aesthetic and why he would choose the things he chose and stick together the two things that he would stick together. It felt natural to me, so I mean, I think I was already inclined to a lot of that, but it was like it was showing me the way.
Well, all right.
Here you are.
Thanks.
Good, good. Shut up. Sure. The two of you. Just be quiet a minute, will you? Be quiet? Yeah.
What's the matter?
Shut up.
Say, what's the matter with you?
I'm listening. Sure, nothing you say.
Fool.
Huh?
Well?
I could use a little company right now.
I love Don's piece of Pie, which is, you know, 9 years long and and incredibly repetitive. But it makes me laugh every time because it's so clearly about not really getting around to telling a story, and yet it's narrative. You know, things are happening in sequence, and people are responding to each other as if there is a scene going on, but the scene never gets off the ground. You know, they just don't seem to be able to get out of that cafe and away from that guy asking them about a piece of pie. They're in the parking lot, and he's following them out in the parking lot, and you get all this just by the way he's cut it together. It's a little snippet of a radio play.
Hop in. I'll slide over.
Thanks. Oh, no. Howdy, folks. Oh, no. No, just piece of pie, bud. Look, bud, look. No, just. I don't want no trouble. No. Piece of pie. No. Try to duck him.
What?
Piece of pie, bud. Yeah.
What?
Try to duck him, and he hung on. He kept following.
Well, same, I guess.
I look back. Hey, where you going? Hey, where you going?
I like to find interesting dialogue that's provocative or that's introspective or that's elucidating something or other that isn't exactly common in what you hear. So, and then combining that with music and sounds in a way to make an emotional experience out of it.
More systems, go. Range operations. Mercury capsule, go.
10 seconds.
All pre-start battle lights are direct.
The radio show is very thematic. Every week is a different theme or idea, and I collect material towards that theme, so it sounds cohesive and like it's making a point or something. Although it's pretty haphazard, but yeah, it's that same thing. It's like I don't know. It's like trying to relate to your culture in some way that surprises even you.
There are hundreds of radio stations across the United States, thousands, and they are all basically fully functioning experimental electronic music studios. And the secret history of electronic music in the United States is the number of undocumented experiments that happened between midnight and 6 in the morning across the country where people started playing multiple records at once. A lot of people didn't consider it art, they just thought they were playing. But of course, that's what art is.
Doing the best for our friends here at KPFA 94.1 FM. And we're bring the show to a graceful conclusion. Oh, no! Well, I thought you wanted to read some genius propaganda in Senator, while in another related late-breaking news story, a little bit hinky about this procedure. Now look at the
They were like the different parts of my personality, because like I was really interested in punk rock because it seemed so like aggressive and crazy and out of control for this small town kid who had no context for what it was really like at shows. And then Negativland also appealed to me because it sounded like listening to the radio, and it sounded so foreign in terms of what music was. And I was already kind of into like weirder things. Like I always liked it when bands kind of jammed out in the middle of songs, or you know, the feedback would ring out for a little longer. I'd be like, oh, I like that part. So that was already kind of part of my interest, but they just kind of pushed it so far for me. And then you get Escape from Noise back to your house for the first time, you know, and you put that on, and it's, you know, you're used to listening to like bands count off 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like they do that whole kind of like track 13, click, and you're like, what is this? You know, and by the time you're done, I don't know, you don't know what you've heard anymore. But I knew I wanted to hear it again.
Infinite feedback possibilities and the infinite mysteries that come from improvising with those boxes.
Who owns the world around us? Was actually sent to us in the mail. A fan of ours made this for us.
This is Tom Cottonmaker calling from Rolling Stone magazine. Can I speak to someone in Negativland?
No!
Can you comment on the connection that was made between your music and the axe murders last month in Rochester, Minnesota?
Now it begins!
Can you tell me, off the record, is there any backwards masking on the song Christianity is Stupid?
Snake, give me one! No! No!
We had to listen to that, and then when we went to sleep at night, in our dreams we would hear Christianity is stupid. Christianity is stupid. Christianity is stupid. Christianity is stupid. Communism is good.
Helter Stupid has a very specific place in my heart, just because it's so high concept, and it's so beautifully executed, and it's so anonymous too. Like if you just listen to Helter Stupid and look at the credits, it's very hard to know who this band is or what's happening to them or what Negativland was before this incarnation of this group. And it's funny in a way that very few other albums at the time were funny. And it captures this kind of satanic music paranoia of the late 80s that was like, it's hard to explain how that was really a thing, you know, because people now don't seem to laugh at Satan. You know, they don't have that same fear of Satanists that we had then. You know, they laugh at it more. But at the time, that was a genuine fear and concern. I remember being warned about, you know, Knights in Service of Satan.
It was the kind of murder case that friends and neighbors said didn't make sense. They didn't understand how an A student from a good family could murder his brother, sister, and parents with an axe.
He was not a homicidal maniac. He did not show any signs of wanting to hurt anyone.
David Brahm was accused in the multiple axe slayings, but now, almost 3 months later, many are still wondering why. One explanation may involve a Bay Area music group called Negativland. Negativland's music is highly critical of the mass media, nuclear war, and handguns. The group thinks their music is humorous, but they don't find it a bit funny that one of their songs poking fun at religion may have sparked a dispute among the Brahms, triggering the murders. They say federal authorities asked them to cancel a long-planned 17-city tour and eliminate live performances until the conclusion of the investigation. The probe apparently involved their song, Christianity is Stupid.
Christianity is stupid. Christianity is stupid.
It's hard to listen to the cut and not laugh. If you have any sense of humor at all, or whatever, it's hard not to see the humor in it, and that it would result in anything as serious as this, I think, is ridiculous.
This isn't the first time controversial music has been linked to tragedy.
They were tackling fake news in Helter Stupid. Something about Negativland is always so forward-thinking that they kind of they see these problems before we do.
We felt the women had been ignored. I like the feeling of
They're trying to stay true to their idea as a group and the idea of what they want to create sonically, but continue to progress. The U2 release is another moment in their career where rather than kind of doing these collage pieces and focusing on these works of art, they try to do something a little larger, more kind of in the pranks kind of realm of artistic creation, where the record is almost incidental. It's the entire interaction with U2 and with the labels and whatnot that becomes part of that piece.
Now, we're up to our long-distance dedication. And this one is about kids and pets and a situation that we can all understand, whether we have kids or pets or neither. It's from a man in Cincinnati, Ohio. And here's what he writes. Dear Casey, this may seem to be a strange dedication request, but I'm quite sincere, and it'll mean a lot if you play it. Recently, there was a death in our family. He was a little dog named Snuggles, but he was most certainly a part of... Let's go start again. From coming out of the record. Play the record, okay? Please. That's the letter U and the numeral 2. The four-man band features Adam Clayton on bass, Larry Mullen on drums, Dave Evans, nicknamed The Edge, on... This is bullshit. Nobody cares. These guys are from England, and who gives a shit? Oh, yeah. Just a lot of wasted names that don't mean diddly shit.
This record caused lots of problems. We've just continued to do collage and appropriation, and we ended up making a record that used some found stuff of this top 40 DJ Casey Kasem, who was introducing a song by the group U2, and we ended up using a U2 song and kind of did a weird, bizarre karaoke computerized cover version, and we altered the lyrics, and you know, we created this really funny, complicated, it's sort of a collage, it's kind of a parody, it's kind of a satire, it doesn't exactly fall into any category of anything, which is part of what I like about it. And U2's record label and publishers sued us for fraud and defamation of character and copyright infringement and everything you can imagine, and that's sort of sucked us into speaking out around these issues. This is in the early 90s when really nobody was speaking out progressively around issues of who owns the world around us and what are we allowed to do with it.
I was, of course, doing the same thing that Negativland was doing, but at the level of picture. They were doing it with audio. We were the same generation, and by the way, again, I was from the burbs, Negativland. I could identify with the idea of it as sort of a damaged white kid, and so I was a big fan of their music. And then I heard that they got busted. Whenever that was, 91 or 92 or 93, and I just went, my God, that could have been me. You know, except for the stakes are lower in the experimental film world than when you're in every record store in the country, and especially with that cover.
The fair use analysis. When you're dealing with trademarks, the issue has to do with whether or not there's a likelihood of confusion. Whether or not any U2 fan would go into a record store and mistake this cover for the latest hit release by U2 entitled Negativland.
We very intentionally wanted this cover to be something to look like something that it isn't. We wanted to fool people. We didn't expect to fool them to the point of buying the record in the record store and actually taking it home and thinking it was a new U2 record.
I have climbed the highest mountains, and guess what? I've run through the fields, only to be with you.
There's no real fixed law having to do with how much of a song can or can't be used. There's a big myth that you can use only 1 bar or 3 bars or 4 notes. The real test has to do with substantial similarity, whether or not a reasonable person would find that this second derivative or the second composition incorporates elements from the first. The life of the copyright is the life of the author, plus 50 years beyond that is how long the copyright will last in that person's estate then. After 50 years it becomes public domain.
At the beginning, I just thought, well, I had access to these guys because they were in kind of my world. And, you know, we went over and shot interviews and so on and so forth. But then I thought it wasn't just about collage, like a formal thing, as in avant-garde, again, to use your word, Dadaist, or that kind of modernism and stuff like that. It was great. It's kind of old news. But to actually use this kind of collage in a way that is critical, so it became a piece about not just a fanzine kind of deal, you know what I mean, Negativland, we like them. Well, sure, but also about the idea of kind of a cultural rebellion, let's put it that way.
The music of any age usually falls into the trap of reinforcing the political structure that we all live in. And so we often really fall into the trap of thinking of music as the property or the possession of the person who made it. And yet, of course, it's nothing without the people who listen to it. We make the mistake of listening to music as a fixed thing, as a possession, as a belonging. If you then basically listen to music not as something that was made by one person, fixed in an object, and that you then can consume or buy, but you look at it as an open series of relationships between people, then it's all the public domain. The music is about the relationships. The music has nothing to do with money. The music is actually a flowing conversation. It's something that happens in time and establishes relationships between people.
Island Records. Island Records. Island Records.
Attractive target.
Island Records. Island Records.
Attractive target.
Island Records.
Oh. Attractive target. Oh. Attractive target. Oh. They were so turned off to that music. Attractive target. Including myself. When I first played, I said, is this for real? Is this for real? Is this for real?
Island Records. Island Records. Island Records.
Can't be blasé about it. Most of the music business doesn't mean it isn't dangerous. This is American Top 40. Most of the music business doesn't mean it isn't dangerous.
What's amazing is you find out that people in positions of enormous power take things personally in ways that you would never think they would, like, why bother? Why did Dick Cheney out Valerie Plame and all that? Because you see that guy, that he's actually this incredibly petty, venal little man who actually wants to personally destroy somebody.
That's how they become powerful.
Yeah, because they're sociopaths, and they're actually really tiny little people with a huge drive. The will to power is huge, but they're somehow they're incredibly small in a way. They certainly have no empathy. They have tiny little hearts, that's for sure. Their hearts are so tiny.
Really there. Will somebody find out the goddamn answer? In the 50s, they considered it vulgar and despicable to have songs like Teach Me Tonight, Let's Do It by Cole Porter, All of You by Cole Porter. Those were considered euphemisms for something dirty. Who gives a shit? Some vulgar, dirty act. Diddly shit. Diddly shit. The Kingston Trio sang a song that used the word damn. It was banned on the radio. God damn it. In the 60s, there was a song called Louie Louie. God damn it. Played upside back. God damn it. Every way they could play it, looking for the dirty message. They never found the dirty message. The FCC was brought in. Oh, fuck.
Well, what's the first record we did that you finally, after years and years and years of hoping I'd finally figure out what I was really doing with my life, you sort of started to accept the fact that maybe this thing I was doing with my friends in Negativland actually was what I was doing in my life. But that was when, do you remember the record?
Dyspepsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. and I guess I could identify with it because I thought it was hilarious.
Right.
It had just a message that I could understand. It spoke my language.
To me, Dyspepsy is this record that's kind of about the place that corporations occupy in our minds, you know? Like, the entire album is about brand identity, the brands, the way that they advertise to each other, to themselves, where they present in public, et cetera, et cetera. And what's fascinating about Dyspepsy is I feel like from the beginning, before that record even came out, where they were afraid to release the quote-unquote name of the album because they didn't want to get trademark infringement, and already the record has these like Pepsi-shaped like cover images that are a part of the packaging. They're courting a very different kind of intellectual space there, and it's in the tradition of the U2 idea, but it's taking on Pepsi, an almost bigger opponent than U2 and Island Records in a way.
It's that last 1 foot, I call it, in the supermarket, where that 1 foot between your hand reaching this direction or that direction is an emotional one.
Why is this commercial?
And that's the bonding you want to get.
Why is this commercial?
1 foot, I call it.
Why is this commercial?
That 1 foot, 1 foot,
Why is this commercial?
1 foot, cut.
Chris was the bookkeeper, and they needed a new bookkeeper. I'm not a bookkeeper, but they wanted somebody from the inner circle that they could trust with just dealing with the money. Sure, I'll do that. So I was definitely involved and starting to get creatively involved and starting to, be consulted on decisions and consulted on ideas. And originally what I was doing, and I continued to do it on the True False tour, is that it was an extension of what I was doing with Wetgate, which is my 16mm film projector band, where all we do is use 16mm projectors and loops that we create, and all the sound that we're mixing is coming out of the projector. It's coming off of the loop. It was Don's idea, actually. In True False, I designed a projector. I gutted a projector, took all of its moving parts out, but left the high-intensity lamp. In fact, I got the highest intensity bulb I possibly could for this projector, and I would move the film frame by frame through just like a film strip, and I would move the film through the gate and gradually leave it there longer until it began to burn. And at the crucial crescendo moment in the show, when the music is huge and it's like the big finale, it would just burn down the middle, and smoke began to pour out of the top of the projector. It was a beautiful sight when it worked. I think I brought a certain rigor that was technically, that was really complementary to Don's sort of sloppiness. Like, I had a way of working with Don to sort of rein in excess on a certain level, and we would do the voice tape stuff back and forth. And when I would edit with him, like we edited Death Sentences, and I was pretty good at trimming the fat. I was always a good editor, and I consider myself a good editor in most of the work that I do. I've succumbed to the same excessive, desires to go too far, but generally, I think I brought a certain editing sense. My sense of humor and my ability to go into character was a pretty significant addition to the live show and still is to Over the Edge, because you know, that wasn't Chris's forte. You know, Chris didn't speak on stage. You know, Chris didn't, you know, whereas I would actually be a character on stage and actually speak. And I also think that I have a really pretty strong musical and rhythmic sense, which could translate in some cases to the pacing of the longer form pieces, and It's All in Your Head, I think it's safe to say.
Compelled to behave cleverly or stupidly by the commands of our emotional attitudes.
What Floyd's saying is that if you look at the data and you want to take the most parsimonious approach to things, come up with the simplest theory, he'd say, well,
by the commands of our emotional attitudes.
What Floyd's saying is that if you look at the data and you want to take the most parsimonious approach to things, come up with the simplest theory, he'd say, well,
I'm going to shave with the help of a little Lisa luxury soap. Now, right now, I am in North Carolina, Chapel Hill to be exact. This is an exciting night for me, because what has happened, we've re-entered the Bible Belt. Last performance we did 2 nights ago was in Boston. And while they do have the bigotry there, they don't have the faith. So here I think we have good balance of both. We'll be able to really challenge the audience and claim them in Jesus' name. Take off about 20 pounds, man, I'll look 37 again. In fact, I do pretty well. I've told people I was 37 and they believed me. What do you think? As they say each and every time, I only have a few good years left. I think that a supporting role in a major motion picture is not an unrealistic goal. Man, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna have to get my bra on right away. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not going to make any difference to me. I'll have everything done in plenty of time. But you know, they come in and they see me not wearing my bra, and then they somehow it creates the illusion that I haven't even started yet. They see me in that bra and they don't worry so much. They figure, you know, all I have to do is slip the dress over my head or something. like it's all that easy. They don't know what this is like. They have no idea. You know, they sit out there with their samplers and their you know, little mixing boards and their tape loops and cart machines and you know, they just haven't a clue. All they have to do is get into their white jumpsuits. This is the kind of thing I think about. That is, if I put the scarf on first and then put my dress on over the scarf, maybe it'll work better for me. Looks like I'm about at the end of this tape, so I'm going to have to let you go. That's what my mother always says to me. I have to let you go. Boy, the shrink, when he heard that one. I've never gone to a shrink much longer than a month at a time, though. But boy, he thought that was a really telling statement from my mother, the way she always says on the phone, well, I'm going to let you go now. Oh, boy. If she saw this, I think she really would let me go. All right, straighten out that part. I am going to be one sorry bastard.
Good hello, I'm Crosley Bendix. And that's not all that's wrong. Until recently, I was Director of Stylistic Premonitions at the Universal Media NetWeb. But now, with the generous help of Friedall Labs, makers of Mertz, I'm here to usher in the four Floptops of off and on music, Negativland. Now, Negativland is a musical aggregation always gravitating towards musical aggravation, yet dragging me inevitably with them. And tonight is no exception. So now, playing an expensive 2.5-hour show with a free intermission after 7 years off the road to now here. I guess that's nowhere. The least touring band in show business suddenly returns with a whole new look and feel. I give you, and please remain seated, Negativland.
I'm Marcia Turnblatt. It's so great to see all of the neat things that Jesus does and the wonderful things he does. You know, all we like sheep have gone astray. As we like to say at Women's Fellowship, we are 100% wool.
Richard was absolutely always impossible to know if he was putting you on or not. Richard's art and his life not only were intrinsically linked, Richard was absolutely conning you all the time or not, and you just never knew. We did a video to accompany Christianity is Stupid, and the whole thing was edited as the Stations to the Cross, and it's all taken from representations of Jesus in films and cartoons and stuff. And so it's like it's the story of the crucifixion, completely found footage, the same story being retold over and over by every conceivable, and it was all stolen, all purloined, 100% illegal project. And Passion of the Christ, the Mel Gibson Mishigas, had just come out and was the biggest deal. And it was Richard who said, we're not going to call this Christianity Stupid, we're going to call this the Mashin of the Christ. And that became the name of the piece. Classic Richard. And we put it out there with framed and designed to kind of look like Passion of the Christ. It had the same font. He was a pop culture maven, like the grimmest underbelly of pop culture, the ugliest or worse, the worst tendencies of it. He just ate that up and loved it. And so he could spit it back out again and turn it into like a project.
Welcome to the Dick Vaughan Show with your host, Dick Vaughan.
Why are you trying to hide your face?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am the dumbest thing that ever lived. My God. Is that reasonably loud? Boy, that's weird. We think I'm high on dope. And as you can hear, it's going through the effects. That's the radio. Turn down the intermediate frequency gain as well. Now, bring these down a little bit. Now, where is it slowing it down? It's slowing down. Let's see, is it this one or this one? Let's bypass this. My main influence was listening to KPFA in Berkeley, and there's a reason for that. The Berkeley, Oakland Hills separate the San Francisco from the East Bay. Contra Costa County is like another world. It's that way with radio as well, not only the social things, but KPFA's transmitter is on the Berkeley Hills, so when I started listening to FM radio with very inexpensive little portable radios, KPFA was the only station I could pick up. It's Richard. Richard is calling me. This is Richard. Hello?
Hello, David?
Oh, yes.
Hi, David. My name is Deborah. I'm a nurse at Bailey Boucher House.
Okay.
And the reason I'm calling is because Richard had asked me to invite you to his care conference.
Okay, what is that? What do you mean by conference? I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay, well, the care conference is something that we have after a patient's admitted by about the 3rd week.
Oh, okay, yeah, this is new to me.
We just get together and talk about the resident's care and get all on the same page as he comes.
All right. I'm visiting Richard today, but when is this conference?
It's tomorrow at 2, and Mark Hostler's going to be on a conference call with us. So he will be present by phone.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be, I guess I could do that too by phone if I have to.
I don't think we can do 2 different conferences by phone.
I do have a problem though. My darn taxes are getting in the way of all this. I was supposed to get something in the mail today and I have to send it immediately, and I may have to sit around and not, if it doesn't come today, I'm going to be in trouble. Hello? No. Okay. So I got good batteries. Alright.
So when you read the lyrics online, the way they've been put up and put up again and copied from each other, you'll see it says repeatedly, it'll always say, I think. I bought a quart of cola to get me through the day. It was actually not cola. The lyrics are co-op.
Co-op.
Nesbitt's lime soda. And if you look up Nesbitt's, you'll see Nesbitt's has created their own mascot for their honey lemon, and it's a bee. Bottles. And you go to bees buzzing around. You can do it. You can get Nesbitt's with bees on the way. Themselves.
Chop its thorax off.
Things have been popular here. Okay. So,
I'll look it up on the internet, okay? I'm learning new things from you, Richard. Should we try to sing it?
I can't sing
I'll tell you what. If you feel moved to sing as we're going on, you just do that. And if you want to rest, you just rest. Then we'll give it a try, okay? Okay.
We spent a lovely summer, my wife Elaine and me. We bought us a great big motor home and a shower and TV. We was camping and having a great time, watching Bro Call on Today. Till the bee flew into the Nesbitt's lime soda and we had to throw it away. Now most of the time I'm a peaceful man, but I lost my temper that day. Just one last bottle of Nesbitt's lime soda and we had to throw it away. I like to teach the world to sing with me. Perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. I like to buy the world a hefty and keep it company.
And this display shows all the wonderful virtues and the great things that are going on up there in Contra Costa County.
Now, my main background is a cat which is 9 feet high. He's animated. His tail wiggles. One of his paws goes up and down, and he has a bead.
We spent a lovely summer, my wife Elaine and me. We bought us a great big motor home with a shower and TV. We was camping and having a great time, watching Bro Call on Today. Till a bee flew into the Nesbitt's lime soda and we had to throw it away. Now most of the time I'm a peaceful man, but I lost my temper that day. Just one last bottle of Nesbitt's lime soda and we had to throw it away.
He has a bead. He has a bead.
I brought a case of knee-high and double cola too. A half a dozen upper tens and good old Mountain Dew. I bought a quart of co-op up to get me through the day. With just one bottle of Nesbitt's lime soda and we had to throw it away. Now most of the time I'm a peaceful man, but I lost my temper that day. Just one last bottle of Nesbitt's lime soda and we had to throw it away.
Push it out. Drag the net bumblebee to the entrance. Push it out. Push it out. Push it out. Drag the net bumblebee and push it out.
We spent a lovely summer, my wife Elaine and me. We bought us a great big motor home with a shower and TV. We was camping and having a great time, watching Bro Call on Today. Till a bee flew into the Nesbitt's lime soda and we had to throw it away.
You fuckers, you fucking get out of here! Get away from here! Just get a fucking away, you shit!
Yeah, but sure. Same on the surface. So we get no way to go with the acid. Yeah, still.
della
For many people, particularly in this country, thinking about religion is kind of counterintuitive. It's almost something you're not supposed to do.
What was your first idea of God, Henry?
Let us have faith.
Because there is no God!
What was your first idea of God, Marshall?
Let us have faith.
We're repurposing the Bible, actually. I'll show you. This is going to be the new album, which is called It's All in Your Head. They haven't been built yet, so here are the stacks of Bibles which we purchased at the Dollar Tree. I'll just go ahead and give them a plug. It's only $1, no tax, perfect. So we have 240 Bibles here. There's going to be hopefully a lot more. And
what did you say when you went to the Dollar Tree to buy them? Or did you buy
I did them online. I did it online. But then when I went to pick them up at the warehouse, yes, it was interesting. It was interesting. The woman who offered me a dolly to carry out all the Bibles was she was definitely curious, but she didn't ask. You know, she just assumes it. So yeah, what it's going to be is let's find a. Yeah, here's a good one. Okay, so basically we bought these leatherette Bibles. We take a sticker, which is our own custom UPC sticker. It will basically be like this, letting you know that this is a double CD version of the Bible, courtesy of Negativland. I don't have the CDs back from the plant yet, but I can show you the seal that will be going on the front of each Bible is a gold foil seal with the logo that we used for the live performance of It's All in Your Head, the concert on which this album is based. Our friend Sean Wolf, the designer, helped us to put this together. So yeah, each Bible will have this. It'll have this. It has our own sticker on the back, which is also gold foil and is meant to simulate the cover of the Bible. And then the CDs themselves will go on each side of the book when you open it like that. And there's a nice little insert on elegant parchment paper, which with the title of the release, which is It's All in Your Head. And that goes in there like this. And so when the person gets it, they'll be basically getting when they get the item in the mail, it's going to resemble a Bible more than anything else. And hopefully they will slowly work their way through it and realize that there is actually a Negativland album inside which comments completely, entirely on monotheism, fundamentalism, epistemology, and Turkey. I'm talking. Turkey. I know, but I'm talking now. The album could have no other package than this Bible.
Anyone who wants to buy our Negativland's work as a thing has to buy a Bible. We're forcing you to buy a Bible. And imagine when I'm handing this to someone that I run into on the street. Hey, William, how are you? Oh, our new record's out. Can I give you a copy? And imagine what this looks like from the other side of the street. You know, I'm just talking to you and I'm handing you a Bible and you're accepting it. And so it sets, and imagine in the few record stores we have left in the country that would have it, you know, there's going to be a Bible for sale up there right next to all the records. So it sets up all of these interesting moments, most of which we'll never see, but I just intuitively, I know, like, that's great. And it's kind of inflammatory that it's inside of a Bible too, which I like. But the actual work is really quite thoughtful. The work really is a very complex, thoughtful work. So I like that if it's inflammatory enough to kind of get your attention or even piss some people off, that's all good.
At the tone, Pacific Standard Time will be 10:15 p.m. The Universal Media NetWeb will commence evening programming in just a few moments. And tonight we're broadcasting from the SeaTac Culture Mart in the heart of the Emerald City. Tonight we welcome our newest affiliates, Radio Free Cascadia 101.1 and also broadcasting on the HF shortwave of 6925 kilohertz. Tonight, we'll be welcoming each and every soul to its All in Your Head FM, Negativland's all-new radio format for the Over the Edge program and you, the live audience. Tonight's program is presented in part by a grant from Faith Watch, a nonpartisan organization tracking misguided fundamentalist belief systems since 2001. Additional financial support comes from BeliefNet.net. At intermission, we urge you to take in the full measure of the art experience by visiting the Negativland Land exhibit in 3 deluxe gallery showrooms located just across the lobby. Now, when this is all over and you all go home, you will realize that radio was all there was to see here. So, take a moment to locate your complimentary blindfold, presented in an effort to enhance your pure listening pleasure without the distracting visual clutter of hands moving confusingly around barely visible and unrecognizable electronic equipment. Please keep food, handbags, perches, purses, watches, jewelry, cell phones, laptops, and other valuables firmly attached to a pocket chain or tightly clutched while blindfolded. No one doubts that there are thieves in this building, and anything lost or stolen due to your own blindness cannot be returned. When the on-air light goes on, please hold your applause and pretend you aren't here. And no pictures, please. This is radio. Special designer broadcast will follow in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's All in Your Head show we saw in Portland was in a movie theater. And I'd never seen this huge crowd of people line up so excited to go and sit down for 2 hours and stare at 3 men sitting on a stage. And they're sitting down too. Like, we're all sitting down in this theater. This music is playing, pumping through it. And we're all like very intently paying attention to each other. It's so different than what a rock show is like, where a lot of times people are intentionally ignoring each other or putting up barriers between each other with earplugs and, the way that we, stand aggressively. At a Negativland show, I felt like I could turn to everyone around me and say, like, what did you think of that? Or, oh, that sound was fantastic. It felt like a place where you were discussing ideas already because you were a part of this intellectual discourse, which is so not rock and roll.
The people that will be in heaven are those who have invited Christ in.
Well, that's because God made it that way. That's just a dreadful way to conduct religion. And it's also doomed because it means that the more things science is able to explain, the smaller and smaller part of the unpainted part of the floor is left for this poor God that you've created to occupy. That doesn't, it just seems silly. It's the path that one is drawn into when you start trying to use nature to prove God's existence.
Thesis of how we believe is that humans are pattern-seeking, storytelling animals. It is almost impossible for us to look out at nature and not find some sort of pattern and then tell a story about it. That's what myths and stories are all about, is giving some meaning to the pattern.
It's always amazing to see Don Joyce, especially being a radio person myself. I recognize the equipment that Don Joyce used. He always used these carts, these sound carts, these tape carts that you would see nowhere else except in radio stations. And he would just play these live as part of the sound collage, little quips of things, little bits of sound, usually things that somebody said. In the last show, there was a lot of like Richard Dawkins commenting on religion and stuff like that.
We can put that someplace else. In fact, oh yeah, you guys are working on a box of boxes, so the paper can go.
We're working on a box of boxes.
This has been, I don't know how many years have we been working on this? 4, 5? It's insane how long it's taken, but we're finally there. The CDs got made. We didn't even know if the CD plant would make them. We were afraid that they might accuse us of more copyright infringing activities, and they just say no. They just turn us down. The old CD plant we used to use actually knew what we did, and they were fine with it on kind of as a free speech thing. They were comfortable with it, but they went bankrupt. And so since then, we've had to find a new plant, and we just basically had to kind of lie to them, sign off on all the forms and say that we own the rights to everything that we're using and we're fine, and just keep our fingers crossed.
So we have to not touch the screen. That is an important thing. So
Yes. The brand new bags look really nice. The problem with them is it turns out they kind of split half the time. It means that once you bought this, the bag isn't very reusable as I'd hoped.
Yeah, it isn't. I mean, you can use it a couple times
right,
if you're careful.
A couple times, and then it's split. And you're not going to think to be careful because it seems like it's a plastic bag. You wouldn't be careful about it.
I can't believe you haven't been here before, Don.
No.
Huh.
Don never leaves there's just a 3-mile perimeter around his house. That's all he's allowed to go. Otherwise, there could be trouble.
Mark, what does that mean?
That isn't mine. Okay, well, what I'm wondering is if it makes sense to put the inserts in after the stickers are on instead of. I'm waiting in some cases though.
Yeah, we have 1,089 CDs in total.
That's Bibles. Got it.
Oh wait, I thought we made 2,200.
No, we
Scabby torn Bibles here. Do we have a stack of those? When you find them, they should be separate from the ones I got.
So you and I are just doing disc 2. I see.
And that's your box.
That's your box.
From up. And weren't you doing that now? I guess so.
Who told you about God, Henry?
Let us have faith.
Well, my first idea of God, Mrs. Parker, I still have it. I guess it will be with me as long as I am.
Let us have faith.
And wait again.
Yeah, what can I say? It seems like the audience for the stuff I'm a part of doing is mostly in urban areas, but I don't do very well living in them. So I live out here in rural Appalachia, up a dirt road. And you might get some footage even just of the house or the road or something when you're coming out. And yeah, I have this house that I've redone with all kinds of old reclaimed materials, the ceiling, old ceiling tins and old barnwood and 100-year-old heart of pine beadboard over here, and all kinds of found stuff everywhere. And because of where I'm living, it's not that hard to find old architectural materials, really, which is pretty cool. This is my great-grandmother here.
So you still have quite a record collection here.
These are all the records. Well, yeah, these are all the records I've had since I was buying the records that inspired me to want to start making my own records. You know, do Negativland with my friends. You bet. That's what all that is. I entered this in the local county fair, and look, it won first place. You know, they have an art thing. They show anything that's entered. I mean, they have to. But I thought because it had a kind of a cow theme, obviously. Anyway, there's this. This was my garden from last year, but it's just kind of gone to seed here. But there's this, which was actually sent to us in the mail. A fan of ours made this for us. And just over time, when it becomes 5, 10, 20, now 35 years later, you've been creating this weird stuff. And you do see that some of your ideas have been absorbed into mainstream culture. I feel incredibly fortunate that the arc of Negativland's bizarre so-called career is that we have gotten to hear plenty of feedback from people, and that it's been appreciated, and that just means an enormous amount. I was never inspired by anyone, any filmmaker, painter, musician, writer, to copy them. What inspired me was that they kept their integrity, that they kept their vision, that they were boldly, happily, unabashedly eccentric and idiosyncratic, and they did their weird shit and they got it out there. That's what inspired me. Like, okay, we can do that too. But we're going to do something totally different. We don't want to do, I don't want to sound like any of the records I've ever heard. That's why bother? Those records are already made, And so I always thought, well, if we keep doing this, let's just say for some bizarre reason that we're still around in 10 or 20 or 30 years, it's really important, not just to us as people, but to the way we're perceived in the world, that we keep the utmost integrity of our work and our ethics about what we do and how we operate. Because that sets an example. It sets an example for people, and I think that that's important. But also, I think again, this sounds immodest, and I apologize for saying it, but I know from looking at people that I saw who kept their integrity, it inspired me. So when we got sued, we were being crushed by one of the largest record labels in the world. They had $400 an hour lawyers coming after us, and I thought, well, yes, we got to educate people around these ideas. Yes, we're going to fight the good fight. Yes, we're going to try and carve out a safe space for us to keep doing our work if we can embarrass these people enough. But I also think we got to set examples, and maybe some small percentage of people will look at this and say, yeah, if those guys can, hang in there and fight that fight and stand up for themselves and keep their sense of humor about it, I can too. Maybe and maybe it will inspire people. And so, years go by and you hear back from people where you hear these incredible stories, where it did. I've met lawyers who got into law school because of what we did. Like, I was so inspired to want to fight that fight that you guys are trying to fight, but do it at a more inside the system level, that I became an intellectual property lawyer. Stuff like that. So that's kind of amazing.
Is a fluid inducement device.
That was pretty great. I'm out of focus. Do it again. Wait a sec. Okay, and...
Okay, plants. And they're interested in...
John Lineker! You've got 3 cameras.
And so I've now done, I think, 16 shows with them. It's a lot of fun, and I really love being involved, because I think the show is really powerful that we're doing now, and it's unlike other live shows in Negativland's history, because it's something that we keep doing and perfecting, and we're also like mashing up the old songs and samples and making them new. So it's a recollaging of collage music, and it's really interesting, I think. And it's also cool to bring it to as many people as we can, and fine tune it as we go. The thing about this iteration of Negativland's live shows is that it's a great combination of the political and the just weird and the silly and the fun.
What would you recommend? Oh, and you have to get this. This is awesome, man. My good friend Jared Johnson plays guitar. It's so good.
screening of 22 Jump Street will start.
Content. I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly. I order all those assembled to immediately disperse. Get off the street!
I say this somewhat quietly and without fanfare because... How are you voting on the gun initiative? Well, I'm against it. Because people who like their living green and private don't usually appreciate a lot of fluttering flags and cartwheeling clowns.
There are 17 million adults in California and an estimated 4 million handguns.
I don't even know which ones are generators and which ones are the processors. Those are the ones that obviously didn't make sound from.
By Jigger, I was going to
yeah, but
by golly, that's dynamic storage. Dynamic, yeah, that's it.
It's a discernment is very necessary here. A discernment is very necessary here.
And I can untangle this. Take my content and I can untangle that. That's it. That's it. That's it. Feed on my content forever.
Negativland, they mastered sound collage, and yet they incorporated elements of so-called real music as well to make kind of this whole thing that was very accessible and yet very different and weird and subversive, all at the same time.
Perfect cut.
I am a man with
Well, it's far from the worst idea ever concocted.
And all in all, this turned out to be a very effective exhibit for you people in Contra Costa County. I think if you come to the fair, you'll be very proud of it.
When you get Negativland, where like there is the combination of these Dadaist, music concrete, rock and roll, prog rock, experimental post-punk stuff, all rolled into one, and then presented by these nerds that are kind of, they're not your A student nerds. They're more of like the AV club nerds. They weren't the ones that were getting awards for great grades. They were kind of missing class because they were soldering a circuit board or something like that. You know, like that combination of all these different personas and personalities creates something that, you know, as someone who didn't really fit in with punk rock and as someone who didn't really fit in with all of these indie rock things that oh, these guys dress nicely, I'll go hang out with them. Turns out I don't fit in there either. Like I constantly being in a state of not feeling like you fit in, Negativland is almost the soundtrack to that.
Your other guitar take up. Are we recording? Yeah.
You're in Concord.
The first thing that happens is that the bones splinter.
We're moving to Concord.
Yes? Yes? Yes?
Press the button.
The door opens to let you in.
Concord to the end of the line. You're in Concord. All passengers, please disembark.